What's up, guys? You already know it's D2 Nice. I'm here with a very famous guest here.
Tiggy Maximus here in the flesh. Aloha.
This is the Who Are They podcast, and we're going to talk a little bit about
UFC Vegas 56. We're also going to go over Haney versus Kambosos, which is coming up within the hour.
Okay. I'm very excited about that.
Me too.
For sure.
Explosive fight.
So, getting into UFC Vegas 56. Any standout fights for you?
A lot of candidates for that one. A lot of finishes too. The one I was looking at was Dan Ige versus Imolev. You have Imolev being an undefeated fighter. He's a purely wrestling guru, also great with stand-up too. And we have Ige, who's a 50k nickname fighter, always knocking people out, getting that 50 Gs.
Okay.
But I feel that with Dan Ige, with his limited skill set, I didn't feel like he was going to win this fight. And it goes to show, Imolev was just taking him down to deep waters and just outclassed him in grappling. He outclassed him striking, and he ended up getting all the points from the judges. So
okay. I thought it was an interesting fight. I think that Dan Ige showed that he belonged in the UFC. He definitely showed heart. I think that, it's kind of one of those fights where it's back to the drawing board.
I agree.
Finding yourself with just one or two tools missing in that toolbox that can really get you the win. So I think that's kind of where he's at in it right now. And I think that with him and his team, they're definitely able to turn that around and make that change.
I hope so. I mean, I like Dan Ige, but once I started to watch more of his fights, I just felt like it was the same script over and over again that he keeps referring back to. And he's kind of stuck where he is right now. And I think he was ranked number 10 in the 145 division.
Now, with that being said, was there any other fights that really kind of pulled your attention and got you excited?
Oh, wow. So we have the heavyweights. We got Volkov versus Big Boy, B-Boy, Rosenstruck. Thought it was going to be purely a stand-up fight, and it was actually. And the fight only lasted just over 2 minutes, and we actually had Volkov knocking out Rosenstruck. And I feel like where they are now is where I kind of expected them to be in the heavyweight division, number 7 and 8. I mean, I don't know if anyone behind them is going to really take their spot anytime soon, but for them to be down at 7 and 8, I think that's exactly where they should be compared to who's actually ahead of them in the heavyweight division.
I think that there was anything particular in Biggie Boy's game, and I understand that this was a very short fight that only lasted 2 rounds, but do you think that there was anything particular that you noticed that was kind of missing, something that he should focus and improve on?
With Rosenstruck, from all of his fights I've seen, I feel that he is somewhat of a one-trick pony. So when I watch him fight, I kind of automatically assume that he's only just going to do one thing, and that's just purely just strike. He doesn't have much of a jiu-jitsu game, not much of a grappling game that I've seen from all the times I've seen him fight. And for him to challenge a lanky fighter like Volkov, who already has a major advantage in the reach, not only is he much taller than him too, but like, where are you going to try to beat him if you're not going to wrestle him down to the mat? Or because if you try to outstrike a striker who already has the big reach advantage, he already kind of like painted himself in the corner. And if we're talking about like sticking with game plans, like if that was his game plan, but it just did not work because you already came in thinking you're going to try to knock out this tall, lanky fighter, but at the same time, he wasn't going to outstrike him. Volkov utilizing his reach, and he's very well versed in striking, so he strikes with the best of them.
Yeah.
And so I feel like when Volkov did win by KO, it was pretty much it was just walking right into his game plan.
Yeah. Well, one thing I will say is it worried me. It worried me
Yeah,
seeing there was a flurry from Rosenstruck where he kind of threw between 5 to 10 punches,
yeah,
and they just kind of were like wailing punches. And of I'm just gonna try to get him out like right here, right now.
yeah,
Or if he saw something within Volkov where he's like, hey, he's hurt, and I wanna try to capitalize on this.
yeah,
But it kind of seemed to be um, without design.
yeah,
And what scares me in that is like, typically when fighters are fighting without and kind of lose track of where their game plan is, then you kind of get what you got, and where Volkov ends up being able to stay on the outside of most of those punches
yeah.
and then capitalize, and so that was kind of something that I noticed in that fight. Now, we've talked about some of the major fights for UFC 56 Las Vegas, and now on to a huge fight coming out of Melbourne, Australia. Kambosos versus Haney. Tell me some of your thoughts on that fight.
I've seen some highlights from both fighters, and I think it's going to be an explosive fight. I think it's probably going to go 12 rounds of fast paced action. And honestly, I'm leaning towards the underdog here, which is Cambosos, even though he has three of the four titles, I think, for their weight division. Um, I think Cambosos will outpoint him in this one. And maybe they might actually run it back after this, but I'm still leaning towards Cambosos.
Okay. I think Cambosos has speed. When we saw him in the Teofimo Lopez fight, is that again, fast fighter.
Yeah,
Doesn't seem to have a lot of sting or power on his punches, but he does throw punches in bunches, which I think overwhelms a lot of his opponents.
I
Now,
agree.
the question will be: is what is Devin Haney's chin like? Can he withstand though that that barrage of punches? Now, I'll admit that I'm a little vague on Devin Haney. I haven't seen a lot of his fights. Um, I would like to believe he's a champion for a reason, but I will say that he's got a lot against him. He's fighting in someone else's backyard.
Oh yeah,
There was all this mix up with if his dad's going to be in Melbourne for the fight at Marvel Stadium, coaching him throughout these rounds.
yeah.
Luckily, he did get the okay, and he is there, and he will be in his son's corner. I think that's big. Now, another thing I want to ask you about is what do you think about Cambosos coming in, weighing in, and actually missing that first weight? What does that tell you?
It's kind of that close to the weight cut. I have a feeling that the only disadvantage is that he might be a little fatigued in the first few rounds, and it'll take him maybe another couple more rounds to kind of get his flow going, his groove. But I still feel that Cambosos will have enough speed to actually outclass Haney for the first half of this fight, and he actually might be able to keep it going for the next 6 rounds after that. And my guess is that it'll probably be 7-5 Cambosos.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, I mean, you're leaning heavily into the non-American fighter. I just want you to remember that. I will say that regardless of who takes it, I would like this to be something that is definite. The one thing I do worry about with a lot of these fights are, now that this is, Cambosos in Melbourne, in his town, are there going to be questions, or is this going to be a definite win if it's in his favor? If it is Devin Haney, is it going to be a definite win if it's in his favor? And that's the one thing I don't like when fights get to the point where you're like, hey, let's leave it in the hands of the judges, first of all. Second of all, when there's a lot of questions that are left at the end. with that being said, we're going to wrap this up because it is time. Let's go.
There, guys.